Welcome to another edition of One More Light with me, Val Kleinhans. I have a very special guest, an author local to me, right here in Minnesota, who has an incredible story. Her name is Amanda Lynn, and Amanda is going to chat a little bit about her sister and her mental health journey, her own mental health journey, all the above. I don't want to give away too much just yet without introducing her. So, welcome. Thank you so much for being here, Amanda.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure and nice to
I
officially meet you.
I know. Isn't that so funny how you can just meet somebody completely digitally and then you're
Yeah,
like, oh, okay, we're vibing. This is fine. This is normal. But not but
agreed.
no, I love it too. And we have kind of chatted a little bit, mainly online. And I was definitely inspired when you mentioned, hey, I've been writing and I have this book and I think it would work with what you're trying to do with One More Light and with breaking the stigma, really, when it comes to mental health. I really do think it's important to have these conversations. Should we start with the story of your sister? Maybe that's a
Sure.
good place to start. Okay. Would you mind sharing that?
Sure. So November 14th, 2007, I got a call from my mom that I refer to as the 9/11 of my world.
Oh, yeah.
There's those certain calls or those certain experiences where your life before and your life after will never again be the same. And
Right.
that call was she had found my sister who had overdosed. Um,
Oh,
and my book is called Shattered Reality because that is exactly what happened.
yeah.
Everything that I knew to be reality had completely shattered and was going to continue to shatter for a very long time.
Yeah. Sometimes when that happens, sometimes when people experience suicidal ideation, their friends and their loved ones are kind of caught, or their family and loved ones, they're kind of like caught off guard because they're like, wait a minute, they were totally fine the day before or the week before even. Can you speak to what was going on with your sister right around that time? Was there anything that you thought was giving you a clue that something, she was maybe struggling?
Yeah, so dating back as early as the age of 12, my mom had known that she struggled pretty severely with depression. I would
Mhm.
say it was probably more than depression, but that's what she kinda got tagged as was, um, severely depressed, but I think there was probably a lot more anxiety, possible bipolar tendencies, other things going on now that we look back retrospectively.
Yeah.
But yeah, so from the age of 12, she, went through all the hoops, the medications, the psychiatrist, psychologist, the whole nine. And it was just an up and down battle, really, for years. Um, and then leading up directly to her choice, yes, she seemed unprecedentedly well, like really
Yeah.
happy. Like we were kind of like, whoa, this is awesome. She's figuring it out. She's finding her own way. And she had graduated high school, which was a struggle for her, especially socially. So we just
Mm.
thought, oh, she's, in college and she's just, yeah, she's getting it. And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And a lot of people will speak to that, that they finally seem good. Someone had explained it to me that it's like they are constantly looking for these pieces of the puzzle. And no matter which piece, it's like, try this and do this and, exercise more, eat right, all the things. And it's like no matter how many times they try to make the puzzle piece fit, it just never does. And then at some point, it's like it clicks and this is the only thing that seems to make sense. And
Hmm.
it's kind of the final piece. So
Yeah. When I went through my dealing with, suicidal ideation and all that, I think it was a little bit different. And I've heard multiple stories about, when someone chooses to die by suicide, there's a lot that could be going on at the time. Sometimes they present as super well, sometimes they present as the obvious, and then sometimes they're completely neutral, not really showing much emotion either way whatsoever. And that's why I like hearing these stories and I like hearing about what was going on at the time to talk about, is there anything that we can recognize to help other people? I don't know that there is. I think it's just a matter of checking in with your loved one.
Mm.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's, again, every situation is completely different, but I think there's a lot of times where had we really checked in, I don't know. I think sometimes the wheels are in motion, and
Right.
would it have mattered if I really said, "Hey, how are you doing? Like for real, how are you doing? Good." Like, had the decision already been made and calculated, and was there any turning back? Because I do think to some degree when the when it clicks, it's almost just like this perpetual motion.
Hmm.
Not to say that you shouldn't try to intervene or check in or anything of the sort, but realistically, I think it was probably an outcome that at some point was going to happen anyways.
Mm,
It was a matter of when.
really? What made you think that it was inevitable?
Um, she had had many attempts before,
Okay.
which, I mean, we didn't even really realize until we read her journal entries, like how
Oh,
much it was
wow.
on her mind.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it was like it was a pretty heavy cloud.
I'm sure. That's got to be a lot to take in as a sister. Like I feel for you. I can't even imagine.
I didn't know any of it. I
Yeah.
was in my own world. We were 5 years apart. I had a 2.5-year-old at the time.
Mhm.
It's like I always knew that there was this thing called depression and that she needed to get help for it, but it wasn't anything that I could relate to. It was just like, it's fine, Joe's, lighten up, just be
Oh,
happy. It's good. Like, don't worry about it so much. Come on.
yeah.
Like, let's just have fun.
Yeah.
Life was pretty, yeah, life was pretty fun for me. Yeah. So
Okay.
I did not, this was nothing that I understood the capacity to at all. My mom very much did. My dad
Mm,
struggled himself. My mom couldn't personally empathize with it, but she knew that like it was kind of always a concern to her of how long are we going to have her? Are we going to be able to make it through this? But for me, yeah, I was like living my best life until this happened. And then instantaneously, I was like, I get every ounce of everything. I take it all back. It's not just be happy. It's not just it's fine. Get over it. Come on. Let's
yeah.
go have fun. Yeah.
I know. We always wish it was that easy.
Yeah.
We always wish it was that easy, but like if you're in the midst of it, it's just not. It feels like this incredible bottomless pit that like you cannot see your way out of. Did your family have conversations about mental health?
Um, I mean, again, it was like something that I was aware of. I would say my mom, I think it was probably more between them, partially just for like confidential, like
I
they
understand.
would go
Yeah.
to sessions with her. My mom would go to sessions with her.
Hmm.
Um, but again, it was just like, well, it's fine. I mean, you're fine. Like
Yeah.
it's gonna be okay. You're good. Come on. It's all
Yeah.
right. You're just having a bad day, you know?
Right. Because you want her to
Yeah.
be okay. You want
Yeah.
you. You're like,
I
I
mean, I
don't
was
want you to keep.
23. Like
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, your mindset is, if you haven't experienced things, you can't really speak to them. And I don't think I understood the weight of what was actually happening. I don't think I really was able to conceptualize maybe how bad it actually was. And partially, I think my mom probably felt like that was for them to work out. They went to the
Okay.
sessions, they talked through things. You try not to, I don't know, bother, not bother, but you try not to, there's just certain things with certain kids that, just
Right.
require one-on-one, conversations and attention, and the other
Hmm.
ones don't necessarily need to know about it type of thing. So,
Yeah. She was doing her best for what she thought your sister
yeah.
needed. She
Yeah.
was being there to the best of her ability. At
Mhm.
what point did you realize how heavy it really was? Was it reading the journals or before?
Yeah, no, not until after. I mean, obviously, you realize very quickly how heavy it was when they follow through with the choice, but,
Mm-hmm.
the journal entries gave a pretty insightful look as to, all of it was very the journal entries I read multiple times after. They didn't
Mm,
really mean much to me. I mean, her final journal entry explaining why she chose this, her letters to us, I read perpetually, trying to like,
mm.
wait, but what? Da 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 da. The entries prior to that felt very minuscule. Like, yeah, so you like this boy and they didn't like you back and your friend dated him. Like, what's the big
Oh,
deal? Like, this is all
yeah.
normal high school stuff. This isn't anything. So just when I started writing the book, I went back and reread them and then was able to see them from a very different light of, yes, this was normal high school stuff. However, she was not at all processing it from it was very personal and deep to her that it was like another sense of betrayal or shame or me not being chosen or,
Mm,
those underlying feelings that, I did an open dialogue about it last spring. And a lady was there and she said, I'm 57 years old. And every single one of those journal entries I can personally relate to. Like it brought me right back. Like there's nothing in
wow.
there that's not relatable to everyone. We all went through those similar situations. And to think that it was that heavy for her, like, you know, it really, everyone goes through this. Everyone has these similar situations and feelings and we forget that when we're in high school because all we can see is tunnel vision
Yeah.
and it's only happening to us and our world is falling apart and something's wrong with us because someone else got chosen and we didn't. So
Yeah.
it is very real when you're that age and in those situations.
Yeah, absolutely. The book is called Shattered Reality. Did you decide to write the book as a way to maybe cope with what was going on? How did you reach the decision that you wanted to share something so vulnerable?
Yeah, so writing has always just been a natural niche of mine. I've done it for years. I started a blog in 2015. I kind of started processing like how the different stages of grief were showing up for me personally. I would say I have known like from a soul perspective for years. I would keep saying like I don't know why, but I'm just here to write a book. Like I'm
Mm,
here to tell this story. I don't know when, I don't know how, I have no idea. When I finished the book, within a week, I said, if I leave tomorrow, like I did what I was here to do. Like I can leave this earth and be fine. Like I literally feel like my entire life purpose was to write this book. It was
yeah.
just, yeah, it was never, even when I was in the process of writing it, I never really thought about like I thought about how it was going to be perceived negatively, like tried to brace myself for kickbacks that way of,
Mm,
different perceptions or what people were going to say or that type of stuff. But it was just, I don't know. It was just like, I just have to do this. I finally have to do this. Like, I have to put it all on paper. And it was super cathartic for me as I was going through it because I went back and wrote a lot of it in present tense. So I
mm,
had to actually relive the story itself, which um, was, yeah, I always say it was a lot of tears in the making.
yeah.
Everything about it was, yeah, it was devastating to relive it. I very much questioned if I should be putting, my parents' worst day of their life on blast, for everyone to know. I think they were very nervous about how it was
Mm,
going to be perceived, rightfully so. But there was just something that no matter what, it was just like, I have to, I don't know why. I just know that I have to.
yeah. What was that conversation with your parents like when you bring to them the idea and you bring to them that you're feeling compelled to do this? you mentioned a little bit of nervousness. Was there any like outright pushback? How did that conversation go?
They tried very hard to be
Supportive.
they tried, yes, but there was apprehension written all over them. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's something that I had passively talked about, like, "I know I'm gonna write this book," and they were like, "Mm, mhm, mhm, mhm." And then it was like, so
Yeah.
I signed with an editor, and I'm actually writing the book, and so
Oh,
I
okay.
start next week, and then it was, "Okay, um, all right, well, we'll support you." And you could just tell, I mean, it was just like,
Oh,
oh man, okay, what is this going to be for us? Yeah, I mean, they shared some concerns, and just said, you know, like, privacy wise, like, we feel like we've been open about a lot of things. We don't necessarily feel like we're, you know, being shameful around the subject or feel as though we need to hide anything, but
right.
the details of this is, it's personal to us. Like, we
Hmm.
just want you to be mindful of that. And I didn't speak to anything that I didn't personally experience. So
Yeah.
it's not like I spoke to my mom finding her. Like, that for me to
It's
wasn't
your
for me to
story to
say.
tell.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So I was mindful of, I didn't want the details in, like, I had looked up a few other books, and some of them were rather gory and, like, maybe
Okay.
more details than needed to be shared, and I didn't that's not what I was going for at all. I mean, it was overall awareness. It was very much coming at it from multiple angles, and my editor and I worked very hard to show all sides of it, like the grief component, empathizing with someone that chooses this path, but also being very careful to not promote this decision.
Mm.
Um, but just that whole suicide is selfish. Like, um, we really wanted to kind of damper that as, you know, a response that a lot of people get, unfortunately. So we tried really hard to come at it from a survivor perspective, speaking from my own depression and mental health
Hmm.
issues that I struggled with after that, the grief process, empathizing with someone that chooses this, and what it's like from the outside looking in and not knowing what to do in these situations. So we tried very hard to keep it, to show all angles, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's creative and insightful and helpful.
Yeah.
That sounds beautiful, and I know the grief journey is covered a lot. How is it possible to empathize with someone that makes that decision? I don't have experience with that, thankfully,
Mhm.
but um, how do you get to that point? How are you? What did you do to be able to at least empathize with your sister?
I would say on repeat, if this is how you felt every single day of your life and you didn't know why, I don't blame you one bit for leaving. Like, this is the
Hmm.
worst, heaviest, most debilitating feeling mentally, physically, emotionally, everything. Like, I just feel completely debilitated. And I know why. And I feel like I want to tap out because I don't feel like I can do it anymore. You couldn't
Wow.
even identify why you were feeling this way. How frustrating to, like, go about your days and, like, why can't I just be happy? What is wrong with me? What am I doing? I'm so, she says in her last entry, like, I'm, wish I had it available for me to directly quote, but more or less like, I can't keep, like, getting up every morning and being
Yeah.
angry and sad, and, like, this is not a way to live.
No.
Um the other analogy that I give in the book is, my mom and I a couple years ago were having a conversation, and it somehow just turned into me giving the analogy of a cancer patient. Like, I worked in oncology for years, and it was always like, we would never look at someone and say, You have to keep doing all the treatments because we have to have you here. We don't care how crappy you feel, what your quality of life is, you don't get a say. This is all
Mm,
about quantity. This is all about us. You're going to have to suck it up and get through it.
yeah,
And yet, we very much expect that from people that are severely struggling. Too bad. Like
we
you
do.
don't get to decide. You have to stay, you have to live with it. You have to force yourself because we need you here. And
Mm,
for years that is honestly what I was like, I don't care, I'm being selfish. I just want you back. I don't care if
yeah,
you were miserable here. Like you might be happier over there. No, I need you here.
yeah,
Um so I mean, I think from an empathy perspective, looking at it from that point of view too can be a little more helpful as far as we don't expect it when someone has some other type of disease, and yet it is very much expected of someone in this situation. And again, I'm not, by no means am I saying you should take this way out. Um, but I think for those that have to live with someone else making this decision, sometimes it can just make it a little easier to think of it that way.
yeah. Well, it can, and there has to be some compassion involved because it's such a heavy thing. Can
Right.
you can you speak to how you were able to work through some of the grief, or is that a work in progress? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. So part four is all kind of my healing journey. I mean, 6 months later, I ended up, I either had to go inpatient or do an intensive outpatient therapy program.
Me
So that's,
too. Oh my
yeah,
god.
good old IOP. Yep.
Go with
Yep.
for me it was outpatient generous. I was like, okay,
Yep.
we'll do a group program and we'll work through anxiety and depression and after
Yep.
suicidal ideation and ugh, that's a whole other topic. So
Yeah.
you went through your own program essentially.
Yeah, no, well, they was called IOP back then, but it was at Generos. Same concept. You were there for like 3 hours a day for a few
Yeah,
weeks. You had rotating group members as to when they came in and came
yeah.
out. So you were definitely it was my first interaction with like what mental illness can look like on very different levels as far as like mood
Mm,
disorders and schizophrenia, and I was very new to all of that. So that was very interesting and a good learning opportunity for me. But yeah, so medications, out of the gate with medications that didn't work.
mhm.
uh, the group therapies, I did find a psychiatrist that I was referred to. He had been at Mayo for 20 some years and had recently left and started his own practice, and was amazing. Don Williams. Yeah, he was amazing. So medications was a journey of its own. I would get on one, I'd have severe adverse effects, and then I need another medication to offset that. So I'm
Yeah.
28 years old and my triglycerides are like 800, and I've never had cholesterol issues prior to that.
It
And
takes
everyone's just
time.
like, yeah, now you
It
got to get on a cholesterol med. So
yeah.
after a while, that got old, and I was like, I can't keep doing this. This is insane. Like I'm taking these medications, and then I'm taking another medication to offset the other medication, and it's
Yeah.
not feasible. And this is clearly a med issue for me because I didn't have any of these issues prior.
Mhm.
So I went a completely alternative route. I mean, I kept on the meds, and it was a very slow transition off of them. But yeah, I went an alternative route, started nutrition response testing, learning how my diet was like gluten will send me into just a complete spiral. So
Interesting.
yeah, yep. Still, I can do it, but like 3 or more days, and I always think I'm fine, and then all of a sudden, wham, I'll end up in a dark place
Wow.
again fairly quickly. So,
Mm,
um, yeah, so that was big, just learning how different foods were interacting with my body, and then playing out mentally, emotionally, physically. Um, yeah, it was a lot of, I started with a spiritual life coach, started exploring kind of more that realm, understanding more about myself and just my childhood and these underlying root causes and layers that lie beneath what's showing up in current day actually has a lot more to do with, you know, things that happened 20, 30 years ago.
Oh yeah.
The shame, the guilt, all the things. So yeah, it's definitely been a journey. It's been one of Western and Eastern medicine. I would say I've definitely gone far more alternative because that's worked better for me personally. Um, but yeah, no, it's a little bit of everything for sure, and it's definitely people finding what works for them.
Yeah. So it's a continual work in progress. It's
Yeah,
constantly checking in with yourself and saying, "Is this okay? Is this okay? How am I doing today? How am I not doing today?" It's
yeah,
yeah. I feel like
yeah.
that a lot of the time too. I mean, thankfully, for a lot of people, it takes time to find that right medical cocktail
Hmm.
or to help them feel even, so to speak, or
Sure.
just feel like what they believe is themselves. I got lucky because I had a mom say, I've been through the same thing and I've been doing well with what's called Celexa. I bet if you talk to your doctor about that, it could probably work for you. And
Sure.
thankfully, that ended up being the case. And I got really lucky, but that's not the case for everybody.
Yeah,
So,
there's only like a 50% success rate on meds. Like it's wild how many
no,
medications you can go through and yeah, still, still struggle. So, and I was lucky that way because I had started on Celexa, didn't do well at all with it. Um, and then had been advised to ask for a blood draw, which actually tells you how you metabolize different
mm,
antidepressants. So I learned that
mhm.
SSRIs are not good for me. I wish that that was something that was an automatic lab draw no matter what before they even bothered putting people
Yeah.
on. I
That's
mean,
the first
that's
time I'm hearing of that, but that seems illogical. Like, why are we not starting there?
yeah, it sure does. Yeah, so that was super helpful. So then we totally switched directions as far as okay, I have a high metabolic rate, so I metabolize medications very quickly. I could go through and max out on them within a year and a half, 2 years. That was super
Mm,
frustrating because when I'd be doing good on something, it was like then I would have to start back over. And that was always super nerve wracking because I didn't want to end up back at rock
yeah.
bottom. Yeah. So a lot of that stuff just got frustrating. And like I said, I just learned other ways of coping with it, which was very helpful. I'm grateful for that. But yeah, I would say the writing of the book as a whole, um, when that went into print, I felt like 14 years worth of grief and guilt and shoulda, coulda, wouldas and self hate dissipated. Like it was just
Wow.
like there, it's out
Yeah.
of me. Like I can let it go. That has been floating around for way too long.
Yeah. What gave you the courage, inspiration to, you know, tell the story to begin with and then keep fighting for yourself because it is frustrating when you can't find the right medication, the right form of therapy, whatever it is, to keep yourself at a level that you want to be. What helped you to keep fighting?
I had super supportive family.
Yeah.
I talk about my mom who was very just like take the bull by the horns, like I'm not losing another child.
Hmm.
She would know, I think sometimes just intuitively when things were off and it was like, where are your meds at? Let's look at another doctor's appointment. Things don't seem good. My fiance at the time too would kind of comment like, nope, like something's not good here.
Mm.
And people outside of you can often see it sooner than you can see it for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I found that too.
You do have to rely on they're not trying to attack you. they're they're
Right.
trying to be helpful and say something doesn't seem right. Um, but yeah, no, there were many times I wrote the letters. There were many times that the pills sat right next to me. There were some times that they hit my hands. Like,
Mm.
um, it, I don't know what the difference. I talk about that too. Like I say that I think I was more scared that I wouldn't follow through and there would be repercussions in that manner than if I did. It was more like, what if I yank the steering wheel to the right and it doesn't work? What if I take
Mhm.
the pills and I end up in organ failure and then I which is
Oh,
terrible
yeah.
to say, but it was almost like the fear that it wouldn't work instead of if it would, and then it was like I would pull back. I don't know. I do remember that I had one adverse effect to a medication specifically. I believe it was Zoloft,
Mm,
and I went quick. Like the spiral was boom. It was
okay.
very rapid, very I knew that I should not be thinking the things I was thinking, and I did not care that I was thinking the things I was thinking. So it was like a total like the train was completely derailed. I was looking at it saying something's not right. These are all the things that you shouldn't be doing. Don't
Mhm,
care. I'm so done. Like peace out.
mhm,
And I had made a call that night to who ended up being my ex-husband a couple years later, and just we had some things to hash out, work out, whatever, and kind of
mm,
like my goodbye really to him. And I had
mm.
a few adjectives for him, and just felt like I really needed to make those known. Um, and he was just like, "Whoa, what's going on? Something's really off here." And then the next day, I was like, "Oh my god, I have to go to the doctor." Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Holy
Good on
smoke.
you. No,
Yeah,
but good on you for saying, "I need to check myself here, and this is not me. This is not who I am. I don't know what
yeah.
that was, but that cannot happen again." Like,
Right, and it's, like, literally those glitches of being able to pull out and go, "What happened?" Maybe it was because the med had worn off a little bit that the next morning I was able to go, "What was that?" But I can absolutely see and totally believe that someone can go the wrong way on a med because it was like I said, it was like I was looking at myself almost as if I was out of body going, "This is not good. Like,
mhm.
these are all the things they tell you you should be calling 911 right now." And you're just like, "Meh, it's fine. It's totally fine. No, that's good." Yeah.
We can do this. This is good. This is
Yeah,
normal. No,
yeah.
it's
You're
not.
you're almost gone. Like, just tap out. It's fine. It's almost like the angel and the devil, and, like, the devil is
Yeah.
definitely winning. Yeah,
Oh, yeah, he's
yeah,
got a loud voice.
yeah.
It's tough sometimes.
Yeah, so
So
it's very, very interesting too when they say that sometimes people this is the possibility of an adverse side effect. It's like, yeah,
they
I
mean
can
it.
believe that. Yeah,
I mean, think about how many times they say that in the commercials. Side effect is ba 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 ba
right.
ba, and it's like
Suicidal ideations. Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not a joke. Like they put that
yeah.
there for a
Agreed.
reason. So be careful and absolutely work with your doctor and keep them updated on any changes that
Mhm.
you're going through as you're working that stuff out. Um, who do you hope picks up this book? Who is this book for?
So we tried really hard to. I in some manners am a little bummed that it gets tagged as like suicide and mental health
Mm,
because it really is for anyone as far as someone had shared a post on the book and said everyone is grieving something.
mhm.
And I've gotten a lot of feedback that it's like, I have never lost someone. I haven't dealt with mental health issues. I don't know grief. But I found it, relatable to my marriage or my divorce
Yes.
or a certain area, how I thought my life was going to be. And it turned out completely opposite. Like just having to grieve the different parts of ourselves.
Job
So
loss. That's one
I
too.
yeah, I hope that it's universal in that way. I'm not a fan of like target markets per se. I know that's what you're trying to do in the business world, but I'm like, why? Why can't it be
Mhm.
for everyone? I mean, whether it's reading her journal entries and being able to have diverse conversations with your kids, which a lot of people have given feedback to that, like, I forgot what it was like to be a teenager. I sat down and had a different conversation with my kid,
Yeah.
because she's 14 and she's struggling. And I forgot that, like, you were there too. Take a step back. Where is this coming from? Da 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 da. Da. So it really, yeah, it really is. I hope a little something for everyone.
Definitely. Thank you so much for spending time with me. Amanda Lynn, author of Shattered Reality. I need to dive back into it again. And it just it's incredible and it really is for everybody. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing everything that you have.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.